Welcome back to the AM show, and I am your host. For those who love me, call me Lerato, and those who know me, call me Ali. Today is such a beautiful day. The sun is finally out of the clouds. It's getting a bit warmer, and as we're moving into autumn, I know it's gonna get just a bit colder. But today we have a very insightful topic. We're going to be speaking about sustainable and inclusive finance for development. Now we are continuing our series, the investor series, and in the previous episode we spoke about innovative infrastructure financing for South Africa. And today is just a continuation of this topic that we are very passionate about for financing the development of Africa. Now, sustainable and inclusive finance is a crucial component of South Africa's development agenda. And as the country grapples with a range of pressing environmental, social, and economic challenges, we have to find a way to really sustainably finance development. Now, these challenges include climate change, water scarcity, income inequality, and limited access to financial services for underserved communities. Now, today we're gonna talk about the imperative of sustainable finance, the role of financial institutions and centers, how to channel capital towards the sustainable development, the promotion of financial inclusion, and the state of sustainable and inclusive finance in South Africa. I'm going to close off with giving up some recommendations for financial institutions and policymakers. Now, South Africa has been committed to sustainable development, and this is reflected in its national policies, the NDP, and under the Paris Agreement, which we are part of, the National Determined Contributions. These frameworks have emphasized the importance of transitioning to a low-carbon, climate-resilient, and inclusive economy that can deliver on the SDG goals. Now, sustainable and inclusive finance plays a crucial role in enabling this transition. And as it aligns with investment and lending decisions with ESG. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Now, we have to consider all of this while expanding access to financial services for marginalized communities. And in South Africa, we are met with very complex decisions that need to be made. So we still have one of the biggest inequality gaps. We have very big governmental problems and social problems that need to be solved. So channeling all of this capital, all this limited capital, is going to be pretty challenging. Now, climate change, for instance, is projected to have severe consequences for South Africa, and this includes increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather events that we've seen in KwaZulu-Natal, right? Such as floods, heat waves, and droughts. And these climate-related risks really threaten the country's food and water security, as well as its critical infrastructure and economic activities. Now, similarly, water scarcity is a pressing concern for many regions, such as Gauteng. Now, on the day of recording, the Lesotho Highlands project is expected to be paused for 6 months, and this means big problems for Gauteng as we rely on that project for water. Now, income inequality and social disparities also pose a significant challenge in South Africa. This country has one of the highest levels of income inequality with a Gini coefficient of 0.63. Now, this inequality is reflected in the limited access of essential services such as healthcare, education, and especially for the rural and township economy. Now, this further exacerbates the cycle of poverty and social instability. Sustainable finance, however, presents an opportunity to address these environmental and social challenges. Now, if we can align to the ESG considerations, we can find opportunities in these problems. Now, by integrating sustainability factors into financial decision making, the financial sector can play a pivotal role in mobilizing capital towards projects and initiatives that promote environmental protection, social inclusion, and good governance. Now, globally, there has been a growing shift towards sustainable investment, with investors increasingly incorporating the ESG factors into their decision-making processes. This shift is driven by recognition that long-term financial performance is closely linked to the management of environmental, social, and governance risks and opportunities. Now, to put it in simple terms, what future is there if we don't have an environment? What future is there if we don't have society? And what future is there if we don't have good governance? Now, these are some of the things that we need to consider as we are building our society. And in South Africa, this trend has been quite evident, with the JSE launching the Responsible Investment Index in 2015 to promote sustainable investment practices. This index serves as a benchmark for investors seeking to align their portfolios with ESG principles. Furthermore, the King 5 Code on Corporate Governance, King 4, which is applicable to all entities in South Africa, emphasizes the importance of integrating sustainability considerations into business strategies and decision-making processes. Now, if you know the King 4 report, the King 4 Code on Corporate Governance, you know this is the global standard for corporate governance, and this emanates from South Africa. So we are leading in creating really sustainable corporate governance codes. Now, this has encouraged South African companies to adopt more sustainable practices and disclose their ESG performance within their financial reporting. This shift towards sustainable investment in South Africa is also driven by growing consumer and investor demands for responsible products and services. Retail and institutional investors are increasingly seeking investment opportunities that not only generate financial returns, but have a positive impact on the environment and society. Now, this growing demand for sustainable finance has led to the emergence of a range of financial instruments and investment strategies, such as green bonds, social impact bonds, sustainability-linked loans, and these instruments enable channeling of capital towards sustainable projects and initiatives, and this fosters the transition to a more sustainable and inclusive economy. Now, as you can see, South Africa is quite ahead in providing sustainable finance. Now, let's think about the role that financial institutions play. Financial institutions in South Africa are increasingly integrating sustainable considerations in their investment and lending decision. This again has been led by the recognition of the ESG factors. Now, one prominent example of the ESG factors by major banks and asset managers is providing loans or capital for projects for green projects such as green housing, renewable projects, green factories as well. So a lot of projects and newer projects, to put it at that, don't get financing if they're not green on some level. So if the methodology at which you're building your factory or your housing project or whatever project it is does not have any green in it, and green being renewable, then chances of you getting funding are pretty low. Now, in addition to the risk assessment, and financial institutions are also developing dedicated sustainable finance strategies and have established sustainability units. Now, these teams are responsible for developing sustainable products, implementing investment practices, and driving the integration of ESG consideration across the organization. One of the key developments in this area is the emergence of green bonds. These are debt instruments that raise capital for projects with environmental benefits such as renewable energy, green buildings, and sustainable transportation, as we had mentioned in the previous examples. Now, South African institutions, including the IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation, and the Development Bank of South Africa, have been an active issuer of green bonds, helping to mobilize capital for sustainable projects. Now, beyond green bonds, South African financial institutions are also offering sustainable mortgages, which provide preferential financing for energy efficient or environmentally friendly homes, and sustainable supply chain financing, which incentivizes sustainable practice among suppliers. Now, in the microfinance and the impact investing space, South African institutes are providing access to credits to underserved communities by supporting their economic empowerment and fostering social inclusion. Now, the development of these products and services has demonstrated the willpower of the financial institutes in South Africa to really align themselves with the country's sustainable development goals. And it's so important for financial institutes to really align themselves with the country's SDG goals, because it makes strategy implementation much easier. Now, South Africa has made significant strides in financing green infrastructure. One of the flagship initiatives in this regard is the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers Procurement Program, which was launched in 2011. Now, through this program, South Africa has successfully attracted over 200 billion in investment, leading to the installation of over 6 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. Now, financial institutions have played a vital role in the success of this program by providing the required capital and financing solutions to support the development of these renewable energy projects. Now, banks, development finance institutes, institutional investors have been active participants in the program. They've offered debt and equity financing, as well as green bonds and other innovative financial instruments. Now, beyond this program, South African institutes are also involved in financing other projects such as sustainable transportation systems, water management infrastructure, and these are so important to support the transition to the low carbon economy. Now, one of the key areas of focus is the provision of green loans or sustainability-linked loans, which incentivizes borrowers to achieve specific sustainability targets. Now, these are like reducing your greenhouse emissions or increasing renewable energy use. These financial instruments help align the interests of borrowers and lenders and promote the adoption of sustainable practices across different industries. Now, as we've seen, a lot of banks have offered businesses and homes financing to install solar. Now, because we experienced some hectic load shedding in the past, banks have played an active role in reducing the strain on the power grid. Now, Financial institutions are also involved in the development of carbon trading platforms. This enables the buying and selling of carbon credits, and these platforms provide a market-based mechanism for companies and organizations to manage their carbon footprint. These contribute to a country's overall emissions reduction goal. Now, for more information on more practices such as these, we've written a report, again, as always, because we are the best consultants in the game, to help you provide you with more insight of more practices. Now, we have to move and think about how do we promote financial inclusions. We've spoken a lot about projects and about green energy and bonds, but this is more on an institutional level. On an individual level, what has been done, right? So in collaboration with the government, financial institutions are working to expand the reach of formal financial services to underserved areas. Now, this includes the establishment of branches, mobile banking units, agent banking networks in remote and low-income communities. And if you've seen, this includes ATMs within shopping malls, within, shops such as ShopRite, Boxer, and these have really helped just make finance or money just more available to, low-income communities. One notable example is the Financial Sector Charter, which was introduced in 2003, which has set targets for financial institutions to improve targets for previously disadvantaged individuals and small businesses. This has led to the expansion of banking services and the introduction of tailored product and services for underserved communities. And there's a lot more examples that we can really talk about. But banks like Capitec, like Standard Bank, have really put a lot of effort in being visible within these low-income communities. And I think we've seen this with Capitec growth over the past years, and how they've been able to position themselves as the low-income, middle-income banker of choice. I mean, in a community, in lots of communities in Limpopo, for example, there are various amounts of Capitec branches, not just ATMs. So you wouldn't find a FNB ATM in rural areas, right? Or a ABSA branch within rural areas. Capitec has really put the stride forward in ensuring that they are there, So, I mean, obviously they've been able to provide loans, car loans, mortgages to a lot of these individuals. And this has increased their market share, So, I mean, these are just some examples, And if we can talk about the adoption of digital financial services, they are the leader in this. They have probably one of the best mobile banks, digital wallets, and online lending platforms, And I mean, when we talk about banking, we don't always have to talk about a physical branch, but for the older generation, that physical branch is so important because money is such a trust thing. And, most people don't trust the internet, more especially the older generation. They want to see a physical environment to show that, hey, this is a real bank, So there's a lot of, strides that these banks have done to really include low-income communities, and part of providing sustainable and inclusive finance throughout the whole of South Africa is by leveraging the proposed financial strategic economic zone. I mean, if we can position South Africa as a leading destination for sustainable finance, green investment, and we can develop cutting edge financial technology, we can really sit or like be a part of the financing revolution for a lot of countries, because we have very, very well developed financial technologies, and our financial sector is very sound, so we can leverage building up a physical environment and offer a lot of incentives to international financiers to be here and to really focus on building more solutions. Now, the South African government have implemented various initiatives to support the growth of sustainable and inclusive finance. One thing that we already mentioned is the King 4 Code on corporate governance, which emphasizes the integration of sustainability considerations into business strategies and decision making, right? And the South African National Treasury has launched the Sustainable Finance Initiative, which aims to develop a comprehensive framework for sustainable finance in the country. And we can see this from just how well served our communities are. The government has also introduced tax incentives. They offer tax deductions for businesses that implement energy efficiency measures, and the Financial Sector Conduct Authority have been involved in developing regulations and guidelines to ensure the responsible and inclusive growth of the sector. So there are lots of key role players who are coming in, who are collaborating to ensure that we have great financial products, sustainable ones at that. And I mean, we have to really give it up to the financial sector in South Africa for just leading the pack. There's so many programs that we mention in our report, and I would really encourage you to just read this report. Now, what are some recommendations that we are putting forward to policymakers and financial institutions? So, number one, strengthen sustainability integration in the investment and lending decisions. And this can be done at the beginning of applications. Can develop more innovative, sustainable products and services, right? And not just offer them to just institutions and businesses. We can collaborate with government and develop financial institutions, that mobilize capital for sustainable projects. So a specific institution can provide financing for green projects, just only green projects. Number two, we really have to enhance financial literacy and outreach programs for underserved communities, just to communicate the agenda. I think the one thing that really is quite difficult in South Africa is the lack of financial education within our population. I think 10% of the population is well educated and understands these things, but the other 90% aren't there fully. So we really have to create programs for that. I don't know what number we're on, but we have to leverage digital technologies to scale up financial inclusion efforts. And we're seeing this slowly ramp up. I think a lot of banks have started offering banking on WhatsApp. I know Absa does that. Stuff like eWallet has changed the game tremendously. Again, we've mentioned Capitec before. So, I mean, I think the banks have led this pretty well. We can implement robust sustainability reporting frameworks and impact measurement mechanisms. So what are some of the measurements, that we are aiming for like sustainable finance, and we can provide, incentives and policy support for sustainable finance initiatives. So if there are not if, but there are a lot of funders around the world who are looking to put their money in sustainable projects, and this is just the investor talk right now across the world, right? So yeah, there's a lot that we can do as citizens, as government, as business as well, to actively engage the financial sector on improving and strengthening and leading, most importantly, and leading this change in our continent. So when we move forward, we are, putting considerations for the environment, for the social compact that we have with people, and just for governance as well. I think the profit motive of banks is good. I think every business has to operate in a profit. However, there has to be a change in how we transform the capital that we put in, So yeah, this has been quite an interesting chat, discussion at that, just really discussing just creating inclusive finance for development. And development isn't just infrastructure. I think we covered the infrastructure one in episode 2, but development means like taking society forward. So this includes loans for small businesses, loans for education, loans for a whole lot of things. We just have to make money much more accessible, especially in South Africa. The income inequality gap is massive. It's pretty massive. So we really have to close that gap, And what we're building at AM Consultants with community with an extra Y to see it is that we want to include, sustainable finance with the projects that we're listing, and that's why we offer project preparation services, so that project owners are aware of some of these considerations. I think a lot of people have great ideas. A lot of people have great businesses. However, there's always a lack of information in the preparation part of the project, preparing your income statement or your projections or your projects, So yeah, we offer those services at AM Consultants, and we're really proud of the work that we're doing, the work that we've done, and the work that we're yet to do. Our goal is to really facilitate change in organizations, just to, place them better strategically. So yes, this has been quite an insightful conversation or discussion. Thanks to our hosting provider, inthemorning.co.za. Get your domains from 99 Rand per month, and let's professionalize your business. Let's build sustainable businesses across Africa, and let's change lives. So again, thank you for tuning in. It's your host, Rato Ali Masubelele, and it's been a wonderful episode. Have a beautiful day.